Part 35. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 342. President Yan's complexion changed, from blue to white for a while. The scene was very embarrassing for a while, and the two assistants next to him couldn't stand it any longer. Who are you? You know so much. Which company's chairman? How much is he worth? I'm afraid that after studying a lot, I still work for others in the end. That's right, if you are like this, you don't have to go to GFN Electronics, you're just a poor ghost. The two of them sang in harmony, expressing that mean rich man's face to the fullest. People around couldn't stand it anymore, but they were still patient. Which company do you care about? Lu Feng stared at the three and asked, you said you are the chairman of GFN Electronics, what evidence do you have? What's your business? I warned you once, don't look for trouble, otherwise I'll call you and you won't be able to eat and walk around. Stay away from President Lu, you know. The two assistants next to them began to push and shove, and the three of them were already a little lacking in confidence. Lu Feng took a step back, not knowing when there were 2 or 3 security guards standing beside him. Behind him was Huang Youwei, not knowing whether to protect Lu Feng or Huang Youwei. Security stopped the two from pushing and shoving. What's wrong with you? Lu Feng looked at them and said with a half smile, Mr. Lu is so amazing, one phone call can solve everyone's problems. One phone call can make people go bankrupt, and I can't eat and walk around. I just wonder, who are you calling? Stop beeping, you know. The assistant was already annoyed, and stretched out a finger to scold. I tell you, if you don't want to cause trouble, just get away from me. In the Suzhou business world, Mr. Lu is like the Lord of Hell. When Lu Feng heard his metaphor, he couldn't help but be amused. Mr. Lu, since you are reluctant to talk about some future markets, let's talk about the past. As for the Panda authorization, the market procurement has no advantages over these old state-owned enterprises, so how can it be sold today? To what extent? Lu Feng asked. This question can be said to have asked the voice of everyone present. Everyone is curious. If Weaputa can do it, other companies can do it. Why is it that only it came out? For a moment, all eyes are on Mr. Yan. As the helm of GFN Electronics, he must be very clear about this. Mr. Yan froze on the spot, and there was only one thought left in his mind, why? In the end, why? Mr. Lu, you don't know this, do you? That's right, this is a company that you personally worked on. You planned something, don't you know? The people present looked at Mr. Yan with a little more suspicion. If he said that he did not know the future development prospects of the industry, it could be understood that he was afraid of being known by other companies in the same industry. It was very suspicious to stand there at a loss. I'm going to the toilet. Sweat beaded on Mr. Yan's forehead. Don't worry, it won't take a while. Lu Feng looked at him and said, you can't tell, why don't I tell you? Since you want to be in the limelight, then you say, everyone let me go, I'll go to the bathroom, the conference will start soon, everyone will be seated first. The two assistants guarded President Yan and walked out, but the crowd did not give in at all. Don't go, go. After listening to them, Lu Feng saw that they were blocked back, and said solemnly, the technology, market, and price in GFN Electronics' hands are similar to many state-owned enterprises, so why can they come out? Mainly because of market positioning. Weaputa aims at the bottom of the market, the rural market. There is huge room for development in the bottom market, but because domestic companies have been reluctant to set prices, Weaputa has indeed been losing money. At the highest point, selling one unit lost more than 200 yuan, and fought price wars in the market. The low price strategy is really difficult in big cities because people think you get what you pay for. But in the bottom market, what they want is stability. There is a TV to watch, and a large color TV needs to be placed in the home to marry a daughter-in-law. What a simple request. The rise of Wikipedia. It's just that it has won over a group of people who are disliked and despised by the market. It is not the way to sell at a loss, but with the big dive of raw materials, GFN Electronics has now achieved formal profitability. What is business? Business is the relationship between supply and demand. Where there is demand, there will be business opportunities. If you target specific groups of people and focus on their needs, then you will be successful. As soon as these words came out, there was applause at the scene, and many people looked at Lu Feng, wondering, who is this young man? Looking at his temperament and conversation, he doesn't look like an ordinary person. Are you finished? Mr. Yan looked at Lu Feng and said, then I'll go to the toilet. The security guard next to him was still blocking him. You kept saying just now that the chairman of GFN Electronics is very powerful. You can do anything with just one phone call. Let me tell you now, I can make you have nothing with a single word, and you have to go to jail, Lu Feng jokingly said. Look at him. What are you pretending to be here? What is your identity? Come on, let me see it. Threatening the chairman of GFN Electronics, are you tired of living? The assistant next to him shouted sternly. You've been beeping so much here, you have a way to say your company name, your name. Tell me, damn, I won't kill you. Lu Feng stared at Mr. Yan with a slight smile, and said in a low voice, GFN Electronics. Lu Feng. The sound was not loud, but it fell into the ears of Mr. Yan and the three of them like a thunderbolt. The whole person was instantly smart, and Mr. Yan only felt a heat flow down his thighs. Scared to pee. Everyone present was staring at Lu Feng. Why are there two President Lu? Huang Yowei stood aside and watched the excitement for a long time. He raised his wrist and glanced at his watch. It was less than 10 minutes before the conference started, and this farce should be over. He waved his hand towards several security guards, and the three of them rushed up in an instant, and Mr. Yan and the three were pushed to the ground. A reminder sounded at the venue, dear guests, the conference is about to start, please take your seats as soon as possible. The voice resounded throughout the venue, and it was only then that everyone reacted. When many people saw Huang Yowei, they hurriedly wanted to come forward and say a few polite words, but they turned around and left. Huang Yowei couldn't speak, and wanted to say a word to the real President Lu, but Huang Yowei hugged Lu Feng's shoulder and left. There are so many liars these days. What's the matter? It's all deceived to come here, it's just daring. I was almost fooled just now, and I was thinking of buying some auto parts to get a relationship. It's dangerous. It's dangerous. Lu Feng walked towards the first row and said with a wry smile, I just said that on the way, why are people throwing nails on the road? It seems that they came prepared. Ha 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 ha, Huang Yowei laughed extremely happily, patted Lu Feng's back hard, and said with a full smile, you liar will have a day when you are almost cheated. What do you call me a liar? Lu Feng shook his head speechlessly and said, these three boys are also very brave, but their acting skills are too poor. After all, you have little experience, where can you be so consummate? Look at me, isn't it a run on me inside and out? Lu Feng was already standing in front of his own position as he spoke. The world is this world, the conference is about to start, take your seat, Huang Yowei said and walked towards the backstage, passing by the positions of some people, standing up to say hello. There were a lot of people who weren't seated, and the host came up to make arrangements in a hurry, but a few people rushed to the front row and handed their business cards to Lu Feng, and they were polite for a while. Thank you for your cooperation. Now, let's invite the leaders with warm applause. There was thunderous applause at the scene, the camera had already started filming. Lu Feng watched Huang Yowei walk in the front, followed by 7 or 8 people, walked out and waved to everyone, then took a seat in the front seats. The mid-year private enterprise conference is nothing more than a summary, and by the way, let these leaders come to the stage to brag about what they have done in the first half of the year, give awards to these enterprises, and then talk about the situation in the second half of the year. The content of the meeting was a bit boring, but Huang Yowei mentioned GFN Electronics many times throughout his speech. Now GFN Electronics has become his greatest political achievement and a milestone in his promotion of local private enterprises. It is not Lu Feng's turn to speak at this kind of meeting, and it is only necessary to sit in the front row and applaud. At the end of the meeting, some awards were awarded. After comprehensive consideration, it was decided to award the title of Suzhou's leading enterprise to GFN Electronics. After the meeting, the crowd of Wang bowed to Lu Feng's side. Lu Feng hurriedly walked to the back lounge when he saw this situation. So many people came down politely, and he definitely didn't need to eat lunch. "Mr. Lu, wait a minute." In the corridor, a man in his 60s trotted. Lu Feng stopped and glanced at him, feeling a little familiar, and asked, "What's the matter?" "I'm sorry about what happened before, don't take it to heart," the man said. "What happened before?" Lu Feng thought about it for a while, but did not remember this person, and asked, "What's the matter?" "It was when you held a banquet at the Chamber of Commerce at the beginning of the year, didn't you have a conflict with the son of the Li family?" "Actually, I am also the vice chairman, so I can't decide anything. Now Hokan Copper has withdrawn from the Chamber of Commerce. I hope GFN Electronics I can join," the other party said very kindly. Lu Feng suddenly remembered that when he was pumping Li Yelong, this old man was standing with President Li. At that time, Lu Feng said something, but now they refuse to join themselves, and when the time comes, let them beg them to join, and it took less than half a year to come to find them. It's all in the past, let's make money with anger. Lu Feng grinned, showing a row of big white teeth, and said, "No." The other party's face stiffened. He didn't expect Lu Feng to refuse, and his face was a little unbearable, but he still held back his temper. "Mr. Lu, there are many ways to go with friends, you are still young, you are just joining a chamber of commerce, we can give you one, the name of the vice president." "No." After Lu Feng finished speaking, he turned his head and left. He actually wanted to join in, but Huang Yowei couldn't show the state of ganging up for one day. In this case, joining a chamber of commerce seems trivial. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 343. The man stood there, his face was not good looking. Before, everyone in the local business community was familiar with each other, and they would give each other face. Businessmen, they were good friends. But as young faces like Lu Feng began to emerge, some of these older people didn't quite fit their style of doing things. In the lounge, Huang Yowei sat upright with Erlang's legs crossed, a cigarette in his hand, and spoke to the people on both sides. Some people nodded frequently, and some people picked up a pen and a notebook to write down, looking very serious. Secretary Kui knocked, walked in and said, "Lu Feng is here. Let him in." Lu Feng walked in, looked at the entrepreneurs and nodded, and sat on the left side. It's still the same sentence, we must grasp the lifeline of the times, be full of energy, and make the enterprise bigger and stronger, not only based on the local, but also in the whole country and the world, build a good trading port, let the products go out, and learn to be grateful and benefit. Local, active participation in philanthropy. As soon as Huang Yowei finished speaking, there were only a dozen people at the scene, but the applause was particularly vigorous. It's dinner time, everyone goes to eat first. At the end of the year, I hope you will go to a higher level, Huang Yowei said and stood up. Everyone got up in a hurry, all kinds of hard work and you are tired, this kind of polite words. When Huang Yowei walked in front of Lu Feng, he glanced at him and said, "Go eat." Lu Feng nodded and followed him out the door. The others present look at me and I look at you. I feel a little unhappy in my heart. After the meeting just now, they ran over here and flattered a lot late. The food was not too rich, just home-cooked food. Huang Yowei had to go down to inspect in the afternoon, and the time was tight. After a while, he put down the bowl and chopsticks and said, "Isn't it a lot easier these days? Standing up, making a profit, I'm also happy." Lu Feng looked at him and said, "The leader will come on number 1, make arrangements, don't make any fuss, I tell you, you are the face of the province now, and people from Shenzhen are coming for inspection, do you understand?" proudly. Lu Feng laughed when he saw his expression like a child. "What are you laughing at? How long have I been here? Our policy here. Can it compare with Shenzhen? Yes, yes, it's mainly because of your outstanding ability. I'm here. I really can't develop in Shenzhen. Talents like you will definitely be upgraded. The greater the ability, the greater the responsibility." Lu Feng smiled. Ha 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 ha, Huang Yowei laughed very happily, his back molars were exposed with joy, and with an unstoppable smile on his face, he picked up chopsticks and ate 2 mouthfuls. "We too, perfect match, you is that hole filled?" "Which hole?" Lu Feng asked. GFN Electronics had too many capital holes, and he didn't know which one to ask for a while. Hearing this, Huang Yowei sighed, that is, Lu Feng dared to play like this, he has always had high leverage all the way to start a business, and the key is that he has never had an accident. "The 80 million one," Huang Yowei said angrily. "That's no problem. According to the current profit, it can definitely be paid back when it expires, and Zhuang Yuntian's 50 million will be next year." Off, Huang Yowei waved his hand and said, "I'm not your chairman, why are you telling me these troublesome things? I used to be annoying enough in Metallurgical Steel Group, so I just ask, don't go bankrupt, don't go out of business." What a moth, in the second half of this year, GFN Electronics will be the key propaganda, and it will appear in my work report in large numbers, do you understand? "I understand," Lu Feng nodded solemnly. "That's it." Huang Yowei stood up and prepared to leave. "By the way, Mr. Huang. What happened again?" Lu Feng hurriedly took it out of his pocket. Before, he asked Zhang Fengxia to buy a house in Xiangjiang, but it was done. He gave him the key when he left today. "The other day, you left the house keys with me." Lu Feng stared at him, took out 3 keys from his pocket, handed them to him, and said, "I'll bring it to you when I come today, and save the money. Gotta go get the keys. There are a lot of waiters around, and there are also many people who have been looking this way, definitely in the public eye." Huang Yowei hesitated, stared at the bunch of keys, and asked, "When did I leave the keys with you?" "On that day, you forgot that you were eating at a restaurant. You were considerate of the people, promoted the relationship with private entrepreneurs, and further guided our work. The key was on the table and forgot to take it," Lu Feng said sincerely. Oh, Huang Yowei looked suddenly enlightened, patted his forehead with his hand and said, "I forgot I was busy, so I got another pair. Let's take this back too. In case one day I accidentally lose it, my daughter-in-law won't let me in again." Lu Feng stretched out his hand in front of him as he spoke. Huang Yowei stared at Lu Feng, his eyes were a bit sharp, he hesitated for a few seconds, then reached out and took the key. Lu Feng watched him leave and sat back to his seat to continue eating. He didn't know what Huang Yowei was thinking at that moment, but he has been in the business world for many years, and he knows a truth. People can refuse it, but you can't give it away. If people refuse, they know that scolding you, that is also the performance of the leader. He enjoys that kind of righteous words and the process of bright and stalwart. Many things are based on the same principle, for example, chasing girls. After Lu Feng finished his meal, many people came to say hello. These companies are not very useful to GFN Electronics, but they all hope to get orders from GFN. Finally got out and drove back to the factory. It is more important for the leaders to come to inspect this time. Zhang Fengxia has held meetings with various departments. In the past few days, not only production, but also discipline must be emphasized. The cleaning of the entire factory was in full swing in the afternoon. Lu Feng went back to the bedroom and slept, feeling dazed that someone was sitting beside the bed. He woke up suddenly, stared at Zhang Fengxia and shouted, "Can you humming stop this? Hey, Sister Xiao Yan, did you hear him? He scolded me." Zhang Fengxia had the phone on her lap, with the speakerphone on. "Lu Feng, don't scold others, Fengxia is tired every day," Zhang Xiao Yan's voice came from the phone. Lu Feng staring at Zhang Fengxia is really useless. This guy is pulling Zhang Xiao Yan now. The relationship between the two is a good one. Zhang Xiao Yan doesn't tell her about some things, but talks to her. Lu Feng had persuaded her many times before that she would not be allowed to drink the medicine indiscriminately, but when Zhang Fengxia said to practice yoga, she listened obediently. Zhang Fengxia looked at Lu Feng's aggrieved face and winked at him, thinking in her heart, "I can't hold you, but I can hold your wife." "No, what are you doing?" Lu Feng asked. "What can I do? I'm just going around Duo every day. I called you a few days ago and didn't answer. What kind of activities are held by Duo's kindergartens, and I organized a trip to Singapore." Zhang Xiaoyan was talking about some trivial things in life. Even if she broke a bowl last night, she had to mutter for a while. Lu Feng listened quietly. Zhang Xiaoyan was chatting with her, and Lu Feng felt a little sad for a moment. Such a big city. Such an empty room. Such a lonely woman. Lu Feng took a deep breath and said, "That. I've been busy recently, so I'll go back on the 2nd. Number 2, Zhang Xiaoyan's voice on the other end of the phone became excited and said, "Is it the number 2 next month?" "Yes, I have something to do on number 1. I'll go back when I'm done." "Will I take you on a trip?" Lu Feng thought about it and said, "Let's go abroad for a walk too, bring a lot with you. If you don't go out, there's nothing good. It's good to be at home. It's good if you come back." Zhang Fengxia couldn't help but teased, "The bedroom, sofa, study, upstairs, downstairs for a few days tour." "Oh, Fengxia, what are you talking about?" Zhang Xiaoyan on the other end of the phone became shy. Lu Feng raised his hand and slapped her, this unspoken woman. "Then I'll pack up the house these days and buy some food by the way." After talking on the phone for more than an hour and hanging up, Zhang Fengxia sighed, put the phone back, and looked at Lu Feng and said, "You should treat her better." "It's not your turn to say this." Lu Feng got out of bed, put on his shoes and said, "You are not allowed to enter my bedroom in the future, you know." Sister Xiao Yan said yes, she is assured of me. "I don't care about you." Zhang Fengxia rolled her eyes, raised her hand and slapped Lu Feng on the buttocks, shouting, "Are you worried about me? Why? I eat people." Lu Feng was blinded by the slap, and stared at her blankly. Now he finally understands what he said: fire, theft, and girlfriends. Everything was on the right track, and the market development exhibition was put on hold. In 2 days, Lu Feng checked all the departments of the factory and found a lot of problems. The main focus is on internal management, fire prevention, and safety in production. As the market stabilizes, in front of Lu Feng, the main work in the second half of the year is to open branch factories, increase production, promote the market in various provinces, and speed up technology research and development. On July 1st, the summer was hot, the earth was scorching, and the air was filled with fire. Taking a deep breath, I felt a burning sensation in my lungs. At 9 o'clock in the morning, Lu Feng was standing at the door in a suit. Zhang Fengxia, Zhu Lidong, and more than a dozen senior executives were all standing at the door. Today's security guards are also standing upright, comparable to guards. 3 Toyota coasters drove, followed by 4 or 5 sedans. The cars stopped at the door of the factory building. Lu Feng stepped forward and the door opened. Secretary Kui came down first and stood beside the door, doing the gesture of asking. Then Huang Yowei came down, saw Lu Feng's face full of smiles, stretched out his hand and shook it. Welcome leaders to come and inspect. Then came down a man in his 50s, split heads, wearing a white shirt with short sleeves, suit pants, and a pair of sandals on his feet. He looked a little kind, but when he closed his eyes, he could feel the sharpness. This is our outstanding private entrepreneur, Mr. Lu Feng, Huang Yowei introduced. This is Secretary Wang from the province. Hello, hello, Lu Feng said, holding the others one with both hands. You can come, which is the greatest encouragement to our private enterprise. Wang Jinshu glanced at Lu Feng in surprise, and asked Huang Yowei next to him, this is that Lu Feng? So young? How old? I'm 25 years old this year, Lu Feng replied. 25? Everyone in the audience was stunned. 25 is a local outstanding private entrepreneur? I heard Comrade Jin from your hometown talk about you. You are very aggressive. You are really young and promising. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I would never believe it. Wang Jinshu asked Huang Yowei, how about those comrades? People have come from afar, so I can't neglect them. Secretary Kui was exceptionally smart today and walked quickly towards another coaster. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 344. The door of the car was already open, and 5 or 6 people walked down. Secretary Kui stepped forward and said, I'm sorry, I've neglected you. It's okay, it's mainly to see the factory. Everyone came over, and Wang Jinshu introduced, this is Deputy Mayor Lu in charge of private enterprises in Shenzhen. Lu Feng glanced at the other party. He looks like he is in his 40s. It is definitely not easy to sit in this position at this age. He stretched out his hand and said, welcome, I'm the chairman of Jiafeng Electronics, Lu Feng. It's you, Lu Quan said in surprise, so young. Don't talk about you, I was taken aback just now. Wang Jinshu smiled and said, it's a good thing that young people can take on big responsibilities. You should train young people more. They are the pillars of the future. You're too kind, let's go inside. Lu Feng made a gesture of invitation. There was a mighty group of people, there were 40 or 50 people, and there were a few who kept taking pictures with cameras and used them to publish in the newspaper. Lu Feng also accompanied him. When he arrived at the production plant, the production manager would introduce the assembly line, production mode, technical advantages, etc. At present, there are 17,000 employees. We have domestic first-class standards in production management. All of them are in uniforms and work permits. Every operator must receive training. We have the strictest quality inspection. The team guarantees that the quality of the products that leave the factory is guaranteed. And we are the only company in China with 3 guarantees after sales, which is also our trump card to shine in the market. Lu Feng stood there introducing, and he could clearly feel that a female employee beside him was a little nervous. He made mistakes several times during assembly. Lu Feng reached out and patted her shoulder, signaling her to relax. These people have nothing to do with her. 3 guarantees are really good, and it will benefit the common people. We should formulate policies to allow those companies to do all of them. The work in this area is somewhat lagging behind, Wang Jinshu said. The people present nodded, and Huang Yowei said from the side, it has been put on the agenda. I talked about this issue in a meeting some time ago, and it still needs support from the province. Mr. Lu, what is your current daily output? Lu Quan asked. The daily production capacity of this factory is 3,500 units, and the monthly output is 100,000 units. We mainly produce core components, and other supporting facilities are done by other companies, driving other companies to develop together. Currently, GFN Electronics cooperates with companies up to 67. Indirectly create 670,000 jobs. With 670,000 jobs, Lu Feng obviously took all the employees of those companies to his credit. What I heard is that Viputa has a very high market share in the 3 provinces, and its sales volume is also very good. Is it enough to produce 3,500 units per day? Lu Quan asked again. It is true that there are some problems of insufficient production capacity. We have contacted our brother company Panda to do OEM, and we will consider opening a branch factory to increase production capacity. Lu Quan's eyes showed a bit of happiness and nodded, as if this trip was worthwhile. Wang Jinshu didn't know what to think when he looked at him like this. He had talked to Secretary Jin about Lu Feng. Last year, Lu Feng promised him to put the headquarters in the provincial capital. Lu Feng, where are you going to open the branch? Wang Jinshu looked at Lu Feng and said with a smile, as long as it is in the province, an entrepreneur like you can take care of us. If you can build a factory of 30,000 to 50,000 people. Big factories can drive local employment and economy, and we can talk about it. Lu Feng heard it. This is to let himself express his position. That's right. The factory is easy to build. The key is that these machine tools, assembly lines, and high-precision machines are not easy to buy. With the upgrading of technology, we also need higher-end equipment, and these imported equipment are very troublesome. Lu Feng sighed, kicked the ball back again. Neither Lu Quan nor Wang Jinshu said a word. Foreign exchange is not so tight now, but there are still quotas for some important equipment. The price of these large-scale equipment is high, and a complete set may cost hundreds of millions. From production, factory storage, corporate security, and the latest technology research and development, it was not until after 11 o'clock in the morning that Lu Feng walked out of the production plant and took off the safety helmet on his head. The cafeteria has prepared some meals. I hope the leaders will not dislike it. Lu Feng stretched out his hand and said, this way, please. 5 tables were set, and Wang Jinshu was in the front seat, Huang Yowei sat on the left, Lu Quan sat on the right as a guest, and Lu Feng sat in the seat of the master. Vice Mayor Lu, what do you think? Wang Jinshu asked. Very good. This factory was originally built to high standards back then, and in the hands of GFN Electronics, it really looks like it should be, and I have learned a lot, especially the management model of President Lu, which makes people feel the eyes are bright, Lu Quan praised. Such a company should be a pace setter, and let other companies move closer in this direction. Wang Jinshu pondered for a while, and said, this foreign machine procurement issue can be discussed again. Lu Quan saw that Lu Feng didn't speak, he couldn't speak in front of Wang Jinshu, he couldn't dig out the corners, not to mention that others were so much higher than him. There is no wine on the dinner table today, and the atmosphere at the dinner table is quite satisfactory. Most of them are talking about some corporate reforms, the social responsibility of private enterprises, standardizing production, increasing investment in research and development in the technical field, and striving to find a way of their own. In the afternoon, I had to go to other places for inspection. After dinner, at 1:30, Lu Feng sent the group to the door, shook hands one by one and said goodbye. Lu Quan was the last to get in the car. He saw Wang Jinshu and Huang Yowei get into the car, looked at Lu Feng and said, Mr. Lu, leave a business card. No problem. Lu Feng reached out and took out a business card from his pocket and handed it over. If I remember correctly, your R/U0026D company is located in Shenzhen. It can be seen that Mr. Lu has a very deep understanding of Shenzhen. If I can solve it for you, I will try my best to solve it for you. If I can't solve it for you, report go up and let the above solve it for you. Lu Quan glanced at the business card, put it in the pocket on the chest of his shirt, and said, "In short, Shenzhen welcomes you." "Thank you." Lu Feng stepped forward and shook hands. Lu Feng watched Lu Quan get into the car, glanced at the car next to him, and suddenly found that the car window was opened. Huang Yawei stuck his head out, squinted and stared at Lu Feng. There was resentment in those eyes. Lu Feng didn't know when he stuck his head out, and a layer of cold sweat broke out behind him staring at him. The car drove away slowly, and all the senior management of GFN Electronics were waving goodbye. When the car was far away, everyone present breathed a sigh of relief. Zhang Fengxia unbuttoned her suit and fanned it. "It's so hot, my clothes are soaking wet inside. I didn't even dare to eat at noon. I didn't even dare to breathe in front of President Liu. The one standing in front of me didn't know the level of the province. Too hot." Lu Feng listened to the chatter of the crowd. He didn't have enough to eat at noon, so he waved his hand and said, "Do your own thing." The people present dispersed in relief. Lu Feng took off his jacket, and the whole person breathed a sigh of relief. The fatigue of the past few months has come to an end at this moment. He was going to give himself a vacation, and he had nothing to do in the afternoon. Suddenly, he wanted to be by Zhang Xiaoyan's side in the next second, and that strong nostalgia lingered in his heart. "It's like having a little hand tickling in my heart. That kind of feeling is especially like wanting to meet a very hot netizen who is chatting on the internet." "Is there a flight to Shenzhen this afternoon?" Lu Feng suddenly asked Zhang Fengxia, who was following behind. "Just one trip, you can't wait for a moment," Zhang Fengxia said with a face full of teasing. "You're holding back like this." "What?" Lu Feng turned his head and continued to walk forward. "Come on, I'll accompany you into the house," Zhang Fengxia trotted forward and teased. "Watch your words. Missing is like a small stream, flowing day and night. When it converges into a magnificent river, on this day, it bursts its banks." In his 2 lives, Lu Feng has never been so eager to look at someone. He just wants to look at her. She is the only person who can make him feel happy just by looking at him. Talking on the phone in the afternoon, Lu Feng told Zhang Xiaoyan how he felt in his heart. Unexpectedly, Zhang Xiaoyan on the other end of the phone burst into tears, choked up and said, I miss you every night, but I dare not tell you, I'm afraid to disturb you." In the evening, after hanging up the phone, Lu Feng's heart was already flying to Shenzhen. Zhang Xiaoyan simply tidied up and drove to pick up Duo from school. In the waiting room of the school, every parent would have a form in front of their child's status at school today. There are fruits and tea on the table. Parents can call the teacher at any time if they have any questions. The more money is spent, the service is naturally different. Zhang Xiaoyan flipped through it, put the form on the table, and waited for more to come out. A man of 37 or 8 sat next to her, glancing at Zhang Xiaoyan from time to time. "Are you Duo's mother?" the man still spoke. "Yes, what's wrong?" Zhang Xiaoyan thought that Duo was bullying the children again at school. Hello, my son often tells me when he gets home, a little kid named Duo is very good looking. I just saw it today, mainly because you are good looking," the man praised. "Thank you," Zhang Xiaoyan didn't say much. Men didn't expect it to be so difficult to strike up a conversation with. There were quite a few mothers present, but they were prettier than Zhang Xiaoyan. There were no men who noticed Zhang Xiaoyan for a day or two. He knew that Zhang Xiaoyan drove a Santana to pick up the children. In the eyes of ordinary people, Santana was driven by a wealthy family, but in the kindergarten here, driving a Santana is definitely the poorest among the poor. There are also many families who do their best to send their children to such aristocratic kindergartens. In his eyes, Zhang Xiaoyan is such a family, a beautiful woman who has no money and wants to squeeze into the upper class. "I'm the chairman of Janai Company, and the company is not very big." The man raised Erlang's legs and said, "More than 1 billion. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 345. The man's face was full of arrogance. When he said more than 100 million, other parents around him glanced at him one after another. With a net worth of hundreds of millions, he was definitely a wealthy class here. Are you Tianchang's father? The man glanced at the woman, nodded, and said nothing. Hello, I'm he. Yes, mother. My family makes building materials. Hello. Tianjun nodded slightly and said a few words of courtesy. When the parents next to him saw this, they also became polite. This kind of kindergarten has a somewhat communicative effect, let alone a rich man like Tianjun. Feeling the compliments around him, Tianjun had a smug look on his face, and he didn't need to ask to know that after returning home this evening, these parents would definitely instruct their children to have a good relationship with this child named Tianchang in kindergarten. The people present, even the dumb ones, came up to say a few words, but Zhang Xiaoyan sat there unresponsive. Tianjun glanced sideways, sneered secretly. What was he thinking of pretending? But the more Zhang Xiaoyan is like, the more interesting he feels. In recent months, he has been picking up the children. He has been following Zhang Xiaoyan for not a day or two, and he has never seen her man come. Tianjun is not short of women, but he doesn't care about the kind of women who rush forward. The purpose of such women is too obvious and it is meaningless. Under the escort of the teacher, the children walked in a line, each looking for their own parents. Duo rushed towards Zhang Xiaoyan and threw himself directly into her arms. A simple farewell ceremony was held, and Zhang Xiaoyan walked outside holding Duo's hands. Opposite the school entrance is the parking lot. Zhang Xiaoyan just walked to the car and found that Tianjun's car was parked beside her car. What's your name? Tianjun came over with a cigarette lit. It doesn't matter what it's called, Zhang Xiaoyan said without raising her head. She reached out and put Duo's school bag in the back row. We are all parents, let's talk more. Tianjun still had a bit of patience, glanced at the car, and said, Santana can land 200,000 yuan now. It's cheap, just a few meals. Zhang Xiaoyan didn't want to talk about it, and wanted to get in the car and leave, but found that his car was too tightly attached to his own. The door won't open. Can you drive your car out first? Zhang Xiaoyan asked. I don't want to leave now, I just want to smoke a cigarette. Tianjun leaned on his dash and smoked. You run a company. It's none of your business. What's the matter with chatting? Why are you so divided? Other parents came over after receiving their children and saw Tianjun and said, Mr. Tian hasn't left yet. Have a chat here. Tianchang looked smart at first glance. He seemed to be the first in the last exam, right? He's just like his dad, good looking and smart. Well, don't look at whose child it is. Sweet, Tianchang and Tianchang will be good friends in the future, you know. Mr. Tian, let's have a meal together at night. It just so happens that my husband is back. He does catering. A group of women chattered, and several divorced women stared at Tianjun with glowing eyes, wishing to swallow this man in one bite. Tianjun looked at these women and ignored them. Instead, he looked at Zhang Xiaoyan and asked, Are you free at night? Have a meal together. Have you finished your cigarettes? If you're finished, move the car away, Zhang Xiaoyan said without any face. This made Tianjun's face unbearable, and he gave her face again and again. This woman is shameless. You can drive it if you want. Let me tell you, even if you smash your car, you don't have a lot of money. If you smash a little paint on my car, can you afford it? I tell you, there are a lot of people who want to eat with me. Seeing Zhang Xiaoyan being so ignorant of praise, the women next to her were somewhat unhappy. They rushed up on their own, but others ignored her. This guy drove a broken car, but instead dragged him like 2,850,000. What's the matter? So precious? Is Tian always an ordinary person? If your man knows who you are rejecting, I'm afraid he will slap you both. I really took my family to an aristocratic kindergarten, and I don't even recognize myself anymore. Looking at the look on her face, I'm afraid the man is already dead. Zhang Xiaoyan never imagined that these parents would be so vicious. Their angry eyebrows were twisted into a ball. It is also normal. Most of these parents are almost 30 years old. Zhang Xiaoyan is only 24 this year. In addition, she is tall and has a good figure. Even the teachers in the kindergarten praised her. She was like a fairy. How could other women not be jealous? How could they just let it go if they had such an opportunity? Tianjun stared at Zhang Xiaoyan, threw the cigarette butt on the ground, and said, "Well, I've been divorced for almost half a year, and I've been with my child. I'll have a meal with me tonight. Your child's tuition for the second half of the year will be covered by me." "Well, how's it going?" "The tuition fee for half a year is a small amount of 200,000 yuan, so much for one meal." The eyes of those divorced women are green at this moment. "Mr. Tian, why don't I accompany you to eat? It just so happens that I haven't eaten yet." "Mr. Tian, I'm treating you to a guest, just my daughter." All kinds of invitations were thrown out. Duoduo stood on the side and saw Zhang Xiaoyan's face turned ashen, and shouted, "My mother doesn't want to eat with you, my father is very good." Very powerful. Tianjun glanced at Santana, smiled contemptuously, and thought to himself, "Don't you know if you have a father?" The women present all laughed. "Whoever is rich will drive a broken Santana. I don't want to eat anything. Drive out of the car and my man will be back tomorrow," Zhang Xiaoyan said coldly. Tianjun's face froze, and he already understood what he meant. "Do you have any relationship with me?" he said gloomily. "Well, 300,000. 300,000. This is definitely a lot of money." Hearing his humiliating words, Zhang Xiaoyan's face flushed red. She picked up Duoduo and put her in the back row, scolded her, opened the co-pilot's door, and got in from the co-pilot. Zhang Xiaoyan felt humiliated. Tianjun also felt humiliated. She even paid 300,000 yuan. She was humiliating her own money. He opened the car door, started the car directly, stepped on the accelerator, and pressed the front of the car directly to Zhang Xiaoyan's. The two cars were already close together. Seeing this situation, the people next to them hurriedly backed away, for fear that the car would lose control and hit them. Zhang Xiaoyan didn't know much about driving at first, so she was anxious and angry when she saw this situation. "Don't pick up the kids from school tomorrow," Tianjun yelled. Seeing this, a few women next to him hurriedly stepped forward to comfort him. For someone with tens of millions of assets, 300,000 cannot buy their dignity, but in this school, not everyone is a multimillionaire. Most of them are families with an annual income of about 1 million. They are very impulsive to curry favor with people like Tianjun, not to mention some divorced women who urgently need a rich wallet to back them up. After Zhang Xiaoyan went back, she bought a lot of vegetables, and the house was clean, although Lu Feng told her more than once that he would ask the housekeeper to do the cleaning, and she didn't need to work on her own. But since living here, she has never used housekeeping once. The two talked on the phone for more than 2 hours in the evening. Lu Feng asked a lot about the situation and hung up the phone. Lu Feng was lying on the bed with high spirits. He hasn't felt this way for many years, that feeling of returning home. The last time he met his first love in his previous life, he tossed and turned all night, and Lu Feng even thought that if he could start a video, he would definitely take a good look at Zhang Xiaoyan, and he might chat all night. The next day, at 9 o'clock in the morning, Lu Feng's plane took off. After the morning meeting, Zhang Fengxia walked out of the conference room in a hurry. When she arrived at Lu Feng's office, she realized that she had already left. She knocked on the door of the office next to her and asked a clerk, "Where is Mr. Liu?" "Going to the airport." "Have you had breakfast yet?" "After eating, I heard that he woke up after 6 o'clock in the morning, washed and changed his clothes, went out to buy some gifts after 7 o'clock, and went to the airport early." "Okay, I get it now." Zhang Fengxia felt a little disappointed, pushed open the door of Lu Feng's office, walked in and looked at the unfolded quilt in the bedroom, and there were a few sets of clothes left on the bed, which was enough to see his anxiety. Sitting on the edge of the bed, I put my hand into the quilt, which was still warm. With a sigh, he seemed extraordinarily lonely in the lonely room. "I guess I didn't sleep last night, it's all about her in my dreams." Zhang Fengxia was very tangled. She was a smart person. She knew that nothing could happen between her and Lu Feng, but deep down she didn't know what she was expecting. "Staying here all the time is the deepest part of my heart," another voice that she doesn't want to admit, whispering in her ear, "Wait, maybe there is a chance." Everyone who is trapped by emotion is in the same situation, deceiving himself with the slim hope that it is almost impossible to live, and living in the emotional cage of his own planning. Work. She stood up and tidied up the messy clothes on the bed, folded the quilt neatly, and walked out. Before 11 o'clock, Lu Feng got off the plane, walked to the exit and kept looking around. There were many people who came to pick up people, all holding signs. "The crowd is crowded, and from time to time someone will catch up and ask if I will take a car, live in accommodation, or find a little girl." "Don't look for my little sister," Lu Feng said angrily. "It's very tender, it's really dripping, it's very tender." "Don't look for it," Lu Feng waved his hand towards the ant beside him with disgust, his eyes searching in the crowd. Auntie looked at Lu Feng like a rich man, and he was still young, so she refused to let it go, and whispered, "Young guys have it too." "Huh," Lu Feng lowered his head and looked at Auntie, "this business ability is incredible." High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 346. Lu Feng rolled his eyes at Auntie and walked around her. Auntie probably also felt that Lu Feng was not that kind of person, so she stopped pestering her. There were so many people that he would not be able to find them for a while. Lu Feng was surrounded by the crowd and walked outside when he suddenly heard someone shouting from behind, "Lu Feng! Lu Feng!" Lu Feng looked around and saw Zhang Xiaoyan waving a sign in her hand at the edge of the exit. She was as happy as a child, shaking the piece of paper in her hand desperately. Lu Feng walked over in a hurry, constantly borrowing from the crowd, standing in front of her through the crowd, reaching out and hugging her. The men next to him were a little surprised when they saw Lu Feng making such an intimate gesture in such a large crowd. "Put me down," Zhang Xiaoyan clearly felt the strange eyes around her. Lu Feng put her down and stared at the person in front of him. He didn't care about anything else. He leaned forward to kiss him. Zhang Xiaoyan hurriedly ducked back and hit him with his fist. "Kiss one! Kiss one!" A few buddies next to him started booing. In an instant, Zhang Xiaoyan blushed to the root of her neck and whispered, "Isn't it shameful? We're legal, who are we to lose?" Lu Feng grinned at her, and the smile at this moment entered his heart. "That's embarrassing. You're shameless and shameless. Let others see jokes. You've lost weight." Zhang Xiaoyan looked around and said distressedly, "Why don't you eat well? I also told Fengxia to let you eat on time. It's better to be thinner." "How much? The little bastard goes to school, what is better to be thin, and to be richer if you are fat?" Zhang Xiaoyan stretched out her hand to wrap Lu Feng's arm and said, "Go back." Feeling her change, Lu Feng smiled heartily. She would never do this kind of action in such a public place before. Lu Feng sat in the car and glanced at it. At the beginning of the year, he told her to buy a car. She said she would buy it, But she ended up buying this? Why did you buy a Santana? Lu Feng frowned. This car is already very expensive. It cost more than 200,000 yuan. It's enough. Zhang Xiaoyan sat in the co-pilot and said, it's just to pick up and drop off a lot from school. Why buy such an expensive one? Lu Feng originally wanted to buy her a sports car. Porsche 911 or something, thinking of her stingy appearance, a car with $1 million, it is estimated that the car is reluctant to drive. On the way back, the two chatted about what happened recently, not much, but they were extraordinarily warm. When I got home, the house was clean and the refrigerator was full of various vegetables. Zhang Xiaoyan skillfully changed her clothes, looked at Lu Feng and smiled sweetly. Sit down for a while, it will be all right in a minute. Let me sit for a while. Lu Feng couldn't help laughing. It's like I'm a guest, I'll do it. Don't, you are so busy, you must be exhausted during this time. Where can I let you do it when you get home? Zhang Xiaoyan thought for a while and said, braised pork ribs, garlic and oily vegetables. I also bought a fish. It can be seen that Lu Feng just listened to her meticulous preparations, and learned a few Cantonese dishes. She was happy like a little girl, and took a spatula into the kitchen with a dazzling mentality. Lu Feng walked to the door of the kitchen and leaned against the door. Zhang Xiaoyan was cooking, turning his head to look at him from time to time. The smell of oil smoke in the kitchen faded a lot, leaving only a strong ambiguity. Duo was in the kindergarten at noon. During dinner, Zhang Xiaoyan talked about what the little guy did in the kindergarten, but didn't say anything about what happened yesterday. Satisfied, Lu Feng sat on the sofa watching TV, and Zhang Xiaoyan packed the dishes. This simplest and most everyday life gave her an indescribable warmth. I'll take a rest, I have to practice yoga in a while. Zhang Xiaoyan raised her head and glanced at Lu Feng. It's pretty good, and my figure is getting better and better recently. Lu Feng looked at him with confidence, and commented, it's bulging forward and backward. What kind of words are you talking about? You're like a blind person. Zhang Xiaoyan rolled his eyes at him, picked up the bowl and chopsticks, and went into the kitchen. After a while, Zhang Xiaoyan spread out the yoga mat and placed it in front of the TV. The tights framed her figure very charmingly, doing one action after another. She didn't have much thought to do more, she always watched Lu Feng quietly. Lu Feng sat on the sofa and didn't have the heart to watch TV, and always stared at her quietly. It is said that Xiaobi wins the newly married, and neither of the couple speaks, they are all guessing riddles. Lu Feng glanced at the time and wanted to take the initiative. The problem was that he was afraid of being tossed before. Zhang Xiaoyan took Chinese medicine and tried it frantically with him. Didn't the school organize to go out to play some time ago? Xiaoyan Jiang's mother brought a man with her when she went out. Now in this world, the two of them play their own way. Zhang Xiaoyan seemed to say casually. Don't blame the era, there are bad people in every era. That's right, in the world of flowers, as soon as a man has money, there will be no shortage of women around him, so he is about to go to bed. Don't care how beautiful a wife is, she is a widow, and it is not uncommon. Zhang Xiaoyan sighed as she spoke. Tone. It was the first time that Lu Feng heard her speak yin and yang, so he couldn't help laughing, staring at her and saying, who are you talking about? Ha ha ha, I said Xiaoyan Jiang's mother, don't think about it. Although Feng Xia helped me watch, she said that she didn't stay by your side for long. Lu Feng stood up and walked towards her, saying, okay, Zhang Xiaoyan, don't be stupid anymore. I'm not stupid at first, but I'm smart. I used to let you beat me for being stupid. Zhang Xiaoyan was lying on the ground, resting her head with her hands. You don't like me, this scumbag wife. What are you talking about? It was originally. I didn't listen to the slightest bit, and the women who were kicked out of the house. Zhang Xiaoyan became aggrieved as she spoke, and said with red eyes, just don't take it home. Who am I taking home? Lu Feng crouched in front of her and said, I won't call you someday. Then I'll check the inventory. What? Lu Feng looked at her dumbfounded and said, who did you learn this from? Still stock. Going out to play, there are a few rude parents in the kindergarten who teach it, check the inventory to know if there is any cheating. Lu Feng nodded, reached out and hugged him by the waist. What are you doing? Zhang Xiaoyan asked in panic. Take you to stock up, Lu Feng carried her upstairs. Zhang Xiaoyan shyly buried her head in his arms. Since last year, she has felt aggrieved, and every time she takes the initiative, like an unsatisfied woman. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Zhang Xiaoyan went downstairs with a ruddy face, tied the belt of her nightgown, and said, it's time to pick up more. Go ahead, my back hurts a bit. Lu Feng went downstairs and sat on the sofa and twisted a few times. What's wrong with your back pain? Zhang Xiaoyan said, if you've passed the border, change your clothes to pick up Duoduo, you haven't been there, and it's like the child doesn't have a father. Okay, I'll go too. Lu Feng stood up and went to change his clothes, only to find that there were few of his clothes at home, most of them were from winter. There was only one pair of big pants, one short sleeve, and finally a pair of slippers on the bus. Zhang Xiaoyan was speechless when he looked at his outfit. With his current price, going out in this outfit was more like a little white face next to Zhang Xiaoyan. The parking lot at the entrance of the kindergarten is already full of cars. In this era, it is estimated that only this kind of noble kindergarten can see so many cars at the entrance. The things that happened yesterday have been spread among parents. Although there is no WeChat group now, the effort of sitting there waiting for the children, not to mention the school, even the 7 aunts and 8 aunts can be talked about. Again. After parking the car, Zhang Xiaoyan got out of the car, wearing a long floral dress with a slight cinches around her waist, making her look extraordinarily tall. She looked at Lu Feng and said, let's go. What about the child? Lu Feng glanced at the door of the kindergarten. In his memory, didn't the kindergarten always line up after school and pick them up from the door one by one? There's a restroom over there, you'll be waiting inside. Zhang Xiaoyan sighed helplessly, you're a father. Lu Feng smiled apologetically, stretched out his hand and grabbed her hand, walking towards the front, passing a big car, and found that the front of the car had been scratched, and the front net had been torn apart. It's already like this, and it's still open. Lu Feng looked at it and said, I can afford it, but I can't repair it, and it's a person. Zhang Xiaoyan glanced at the car, pulled Lu Feng and said, don't mind your own business, let's go. There are already quite a few parents in the lounge, fresh fruits are still on the table, and there is a table about what happened to the child in a day in kindergarten. As Zhang Xiaoyan walked in, many people's eyes fell on her, especially Lu Feng, who was dressed very casually, and many people muttered. Is this her man? Why does it feel like you've just dragged a man from the street? Ghost knows where to find it, look at his dumb-headed appearance, it's a big deal at first glance. I guess, I must be afraid that Mr. Tian would hit her, and the car didn't look like it. I went back and asked my man. The car is more than 1 million yuan. How much does it cost to fix it? That's not 100,000. Lu Feng could feel the gazes cast from all directions, and the muttering in his ears made him look around, sat down and asked, what's the matter? It's the first time to see you here. Zhang Xiaoyan was a little unhappy. She didn't want Lu Feng to know about Tianjun, and she subconsciously thought that it was her own problem. Now, if a woman is always harassed by the blind, those gossip will not be directed at the woman, but will call the woman a vixen. Zhang Xiaoyan glanced left and right, but didn't see Tianjun, so she felt a little more at ease, thinking that maybe she didn't drive away yesterday. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 347. Parents came in one after another. Lu Feng looked at the place. The decoration was very good, and it was not bad at all compared to the high-end kindergartens in 20 or 30 years later. I secretly sighed in my heart. I used to think that the 1990s were backward, but in fact, in some wealthy places, except that there was no mobile internet, it was almost the same. It's just that this level of life is a tiny fraction of the power. Tianjun stepped in and glanced at the audience, his eyes fixed on Zhang Xiaoyan, and then he saw Lu Feng next to her. A disdainful smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. He snorted coldly, and walked to the side, looking for a sit-down. He thought that Zhang Xiaoyan was very capable, but in the end he found such a condescending man to fill the scene. The atmosphere of the parents at the scene began to be wrong. Some people muttered and looked at Lu Feng and pointed at him. There's a good show to watch today. Don't rush to leave for a while, there is a lot of fun today. Let me tell you, don't look at all of them going to the same school. She's not even a fart in front of Mr. Tian. Sun Xiahong's mother had dinner with President Tian yesterday. Eat, I was so excited when I came here just now. I already saw that he was a slut. Lu Feng glanced around and whispered to Zhang Xiaoyan, did Duo beat a lot of children at school? I just had a dispute with a few, it's nothing. Then why are these parents staring at me? Lu Feng wondered. It's okay, Zhang Xiaoyan frowned. Zhang Xiaoyan is a person who can't lie. Everything in his heart is written on his face. Lu Feng has already felt it. He is afraid that something has happened, and many people are looking at a man behind him. Lu Feng turned around and stared at the man, who was almost 40 years old, with fair skin, giving him a somewhat feminine feeling. What's the situation? Lu Feng glanced at Zhang Xiaoyan's angular face. She didn't ask, since she didn't want to say it, then forget it. The door was pushed open, and a teacher came in and started talking about what happened to your children at school today with a microphone. Luohu District was established in 1990, mainly to promote the economic development of the special zone, attract enterprises to settle in, and form a healthy competition within the Shenzhen special zone. In more than a year, hundreds of enterprises have settled in, and the supporting facilities have become more and more perfect. Lu Quan, as the deputy mayor, made a further inspection after returning from Suzhou, accompanied by the local head of the district and the heads of various departments. With a large number of local enterprises settling in, several aristocratic kindergartens have also spawned, and there are more and more high-end consumer services. The kindergarten is just 20 kilometers away, and many of the CEO's children are there. We think that if we provide enough supporting services to these corporate CEOs, they will come. Lu Quan was also stunned when he heard such an expensive kindergarten, but he didn't take it to heart. He compared GFN Electronics in terms of management mode and production efficiency of major enterprises and found that GFN Electronics was absolutely first class even if it was placed here. Enterprise. Lu Feng looked at the time, and the teacher had been there for almost 20 minutes, which meant that only parents who had nothing to do would be able to sit still. Okay, then welcome our little baby and little angel to school. The door opened, and the children came out in a line, looking for their mothers. When Duo came over, when they saw Lu Feng, he was stunned for a second, and the next second, he flew over and hugged Lu Feng's thigh. He raised his head and asked, "Dad, why are you back? I miss you, come back to see you." Lu Feng reached out and hugged her, and asked, "Do you miss me?" "You lie, you just miss your mother." Duo pouted and exposed Lu Feng's lie. "I miss you." Lu Feng kissed her cheeks twice, stood up and said, "Let's go, what do you want to eat tonight?" "Eat big crabs." "No problem, just go and eat the big crab. As long as my daughter opens her mouth, she will eat the big crab." Lu Feng teased and walked out. As soon as he walked out of the gate of the kindergarten, Tianjun took his son 2 steps to block Lu Feng. Seeing him like this, Lu Feng already knew in his heart that something must have happened, and he was not a good stubborn, so he asked, "What's the matter? Is there something wrong? Is Zhang Xiaoyan your wife?" Tianjun asked with an aloof look on his face. Yes, Lu Feng nodded. She crashed my car yesterday, what do you think? Lu Feng held Duo in his arms, looked at Zhang Xiaoyan behind him and asked, "Did you hit someone's car?" "He blocked my car and wouldn't let me go." Lu Feng knew that Zhang Xiaoyan had just learned to drive, and there must be something wrong with the woman driving. Today is a family reunion day. I'm sorry, bro, it's just a woman. We don't care who's right or wrong. We'll pay for the repair, Lu Feng told them politely. I was thinking in my heart, didn't I just hit a car, and I didn't tell myself, I thought it was a big deal. Tianjun saw that Lu Feng was so good at talking, and subconsciously thought that the other party couldn't provoke him, and the couple probably couldn't fall asleep last night. This is how people deal with people. If you talk softly, he will be rude. If you are rude, he may not even dare to fart. Can you afford it? Tianjun stared at the slippers on Lu Feng's feet, the whole person standing there, full of contempt. There are already a lot of parents piled up at the entrance of the kindergarten, all watching the fun, and those who have good things have already spoken. Your wife didn't tell you what car it crashed into. Just what you are wearing, pay for it? Don't you feel ashamed? You came here dressed like this. You have lost the face of this noble kindergarten, and I feel that I have lost my share. I'll have to tell the school leaders later that a car of less than 300,000 yuan can't come to pick up children, and they must dress appropriately. This is a noble kindergarten. Lu Feng heard a group of women buzzing like flies in his ears, which was annoying. I'll pay you if you can or not. You can repair the car, all right, Lu Feng said patiently. Does De Ben know? Tianjun took out a cigarette from his pocket, lit it, and looked at Lu Feng with a sneer. What happened to De Ben? Lu Feng didn't know what he meant by the sentence for a while. He had already said that he would go to repair the car and pay for it himself. Suddenly, Lu Feng was a little stunned. This slight stunned, in Tianjun's eyes, was frightened. Come here, come and see. Tianjun walked over to the car, pointed at the torn china net, and said, I asked my secretary to ask the auto repair company yesterday, and they quoted 130,000 yuan. This is imported cars need to be customized from Germany. Standing there, Lu Feng nodded and asked, is there anything else? Do you understand? 13,000. Tianjun felt that it was very difficult to talk to Lu Feng, leaned on the car and smoked a cigarette, and said with a certain sense of superiority, of course, for me, 13 won is the cost of a meal, and I am a little bit of money, not much, less than 200 million. Lu Feng frowned slightly. Why did he tell himself this? A group of women surrounded him and saw that Tianjun's eyes were glowing. Only Lu Feng and Zhang Xiaoyan looked at him indifferently. So what? I mean, you go to repair the car, then give me the repair order and I'll give you the money. Lu Feng looked at him and said. Tianjun was completely angry, threw the cigarette on the ground, and shouted, don't you understand the point of what I said? I'm not bad for money, do you understand? I'm worth more than 100 million. More than 1 billion? Be as usual. Lu Feng has a good temper. When he yelled at him like this, his heart was also on fire. He said solemnly, you have 10 billion, what does it have to do with me? Why did you talk to President Tian? That's right, dressed like this, it's still poor. It's still 10 billion, you probably won't be able to pay out even 1 million. Also ask people to quote directly, but you give money. If you sell your broken car, it will be enough for others to repair the car. Duo couldn't hold back in Lu Feng's arms, and said, Yesterday he teased his mother by blocking the car in front of him and not letting it go. Hearing this, Lu Feng turned gloomy, put Duoduo on the ground, and asked Zhang Xiaoyan, is what Duoduo said true? Zhang Xiaoyan's face was extremely ugly, and she lowered her head and did not dare to look at him, for fear that Lu Feng would think that she was attracting bees and butterflies by herself. That's right, what's wrong? Tianjun said unabashedly, I just want to invite her to a meal, can't I? Talk about a business project, do you want to do a big list of tens of millions? Let me tell you, if I'm happy, everything will be easy to do, not to mention the 108,000, if I introduce some resources to you, it will make you rich, you know. Tianjun doesn't know how many people have been fooled by these words, let alone how many women have listened to this and are very well behaved in front of him. When those arrogant people heard such a huge temptation, in an instant, no one would do anything but to please him. Second option. With so much money, you dare to come out with money, right? Lu Feng stepped forward, suddenly raised his fist, and smashed it into Tianjun's face. All this was too sudden, no one would have thought that Lu Feng would dare to do it. Tianjun's head was blinded by the punch, and before he could react, he was punched in the face with 2 more punches. This sudden scene made other parents scream in surprise. Some ran away with their children in their arms, while others took the opportunity to please Tianjun, and went forward to tear Lu Feng's clothes. Tianjun received a few punches and was kicked to the ground. He rolled and ran to the side, got up and shouted with his fingers, Lu Feng, you dare to hit me? Do you know who I am? I tell you, you are completely useless. Lu Feng took 2 steps forward, and the other party was so frightened that he hurriedly ran back and shouted, you have a way of asking me to make a phone call, and I will ask you to kneel on the ground and call Grandpa later. Call, today's call, you can't do it if you don't call, Lu Feng said solemnly. Tianjun opened the back door of the car, took out a Big Brother's phone, and stared at Lu Feng cautiously, as if he was afraid that he would rush up in the next second. Don't make trouble, Zhang Xiaoyan stepped forward and persuaded. Why don't you talk about this? Lu Feng looked at her, and sometimes really hated that iron could not become steel. I don't look good on my face too. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 348. Lu Feng understands Zhang Xiaoyan's psychology very well. In her eyes, only women who are scratching their heads will be noticed by second-rate people. When they are harassed, they will immediately reflect on their own problems. When a group of women saw that Tianjun was actually beaten, their faces turned pale in an instant. Today this matter is really a big deal. A few women who wanted to please hurriedly ran over, leaving their own children alone, and first supported Tianjun and said, are you all right? Who would have thought that such a high-end place could meet unqualified people? Do you want to go to the hospital? Hurry up and call the police. Who is it? It's so savage, and he actually beats people. 4 or 5 women surrounded Tianjun and chatted, and verbally, they never stopped crusade against Lu Feng. Zhang Xiaoyan held Duoduo's hand, but she was calm, not as afraid of things as before. If she had encountered such a situation before, she would have panicked. Tianjun made a few phone calls. His company is not located in Luohu district, and he has no influence here. He just lives here for his children to go to school. But he knew a few bosses here, so was it an easy thing to call someone over to clean up a Lu Feng? Hey, Mr. Su, Tianjun said with his eldest brother, I encountered something here, can you bring a few people here? What's the matter? Where? It's right on the side of an aristocratic kindergarten opposite the Century building, isn't it convenient? It's fine if you're there, I'll take care of it for you along the way. Tianjun hung up the phone, threw his eldest brother into the car, stared at Lu Feng with a grim expression, and snorted coldly, wait, grandson, you are useless today, I want you to open your eyes today and see what a rich man is. Mr. Tian, don't be angry with him, go and bring a stool for President Tian from the kindergarten. Yeah, no eyesight. That teacher, go and move the stool. The kindergarten teacher hurried to move the stools. The scene revolved completely around Tianjun. Lu Feng and Zhang Xiaoyan stood there with no one to say a word. At this time, right or wrong no longer mattered. Choose the side that is right for you. There were quite a few women around Tianjun. One of them was about 30 years old and had a normal appearance. He stood beside Tianjun and asked for warmth, but they ignored her at all. She was also secretly anxious, and suddenly had a plan in her mind, and walked towards Zhang Xiaoyan with a cold face. Lu Feng had never seen anyone, so she could see through what she wanted to do, blocking her way and asking, "What? What are you doing? What are you talking about? Your coquettish wife can't handle it, and she still beats people," she said, suddenly reaching out and grabbing Lu Feng's face, like a shrew. Lu Feng took precautions in his heart and stepped back, but his face was still hot, and he was annoyed. He raised his hand and slapped him in the face. She was just a woman. She was slapped on the face, and the white hat on top of her head was slapped and flew out. She was beaten back several steps and almost fell to the ground. The woman is smart, she is ready to step back after getting a slap in the face, and runs to Tianjun to ask for credit, "But I was beaten for you." How could Lu Feng let her play with him like that? He took a few steps forward, opened his bows from side to side, swung his arms round, and instantly slapped him 5 or 6 times. The women around Tianjun looked so happy that they were almost applauded. Now that one less competitor, one more chance for him, this is a billionaire. The woman was slapped a dozen times in the face, and Zhang Xiaoyan hurried forward to pull Lu Feng back. The woman was beaten with nosebleeds and ran to Tianjun, crying with tears on her face, "Mr. Tian, he beat me, woo woo." Looking at her face, Tianjun couldn't help but want to slap her. He took a deep breath and said, "Go to the hospital first, I'll pay you the medical expenses in advance." "Mr. Tian, you saw it too, he hit me." I know. President Su hung up the phone, looking a little embarrassed. There were more than a dozen people around him, and he originally planned to invite a particularly important boss to dinner. "What's wrong?" Mr. Hao asked. "It's okay, it's just a friend, something happened, Tianjun, do you know?" Mr. Su introduced. "Tianjun? Is Feng Jun Company his?" Yes, it's just one of them. There are 3 or 4 companies under his name. There was a conflict with people at the kindergarten, and they were beaten. Let's go and solve it on the way." "It happened to have something to eat in the evening?" President Su asked. Mr. Hao nodded. He had met Tianjun a few times, and the friendship was not very deep. Hao always worked in real estate, mainly office buildings, and outsourced projects. His name ranged from cement factories, construction teams, design companies, etc., can be said to be very perfect. He is also worth 400 to 500 million yuan. In the city's construction ranks, he definitely ranks in the top 5. Whether it is President Su or Tianjun, they are more than one head lower in front of him. In addition, the real estate developers are all ruthless people, and the relationships behind them are intricate, and they are definitely big people. Ask Mr. Hao to get in the car, and the 6 cars sped away. It was already 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Lu Quan got in the car and was about to return. Before leaving, he told a few companies that they would start organizing learning tomorrow and learn from high-quality companies in terms of management methods. After he finished speaking, he got into the car and drove away. The trouble was so big that the management in the kindergarten also came out to persuade him to be a peacemaker, but Tianjun was not moved at all. He wanted to let all the parents of the kindergarten know about it today. Although the tuition fees here are very expensive, They are also divided into 3, 6, and 9 grades in the noble kindergarten. If you see your son in the school in the future, you should pay attention. Besides, can you endure being beaten? Don't talk about forbearance. If Lu Feng's legs are not interrupted today, he will be a joke in the local business community. Our principal isn't here today. For the principal's sake, let's do it, Dad Duo apologize to Tian Kong's father, and have dinner together in the evening. Everyone will look up but not look down, the school director suggested. Why should you apologize to him? Lu Feng frowned. I'm done with an apology. Let me tell you, I won't let you open your eyes today. I really thought my money came from a strong wind, Tianjun shouted with his finger to Lu Feng. The two of them disagreed. The school director was a little embarrassed. Tian was always a character. He knew very well that the whole kindergarten could be richer and more powerful than others. He stretched out his hand and pulled Lu Feng aside, and said in a low voice, "Do you know who they are? The bosses of several companies. Some of them have money. Why are you messing with this? Endure the calm for a while, and take a step back to see the sky." "Why do you persuade people like that?" Lu Feng stared at him and said, "He molested my wife." "You're just teasing, but if you don't get it started, even if you get started, you have money and you earn it. You send your child here because you want your child to meet rich people." The school director glanced at Lu Feng's. He put his arm around Lu Feng's shoulder and whispered, "Brother, be smart. What a great opportunity. If you don't know each other, you apologize to others, be more sincere, show them face, give them a step up, and invite them to dinner at night. Isn't it a relationship? There are more to come. Walk around. Isn't this an opportunity?" Lu Feng looked at him and wanted to slap him twice, but he thought this person was ridiculous. "You're not suitable to be a school director in a kindergarten. You're so flexible and shameless, so you're suitable for doing business." The school director thought that Lu Feng was complimenting him, smiled and said, "I am working here, and I am also accumulating contacts, so I will do as I say and give my brother a face." Before the school director had finished speaking, several cars were parked on the side of the road. The driver got out of the car and opened the back door. President Su stepped out, and 3 or 4 men stepped out from the car next to him. They looked like assistant or something. "This time, I won't be able to use it, you can do it yourself." The school director patted Lu Feng on the back, as if he had already thought of his next move. Mr. Su came over and put his hand in his armpit, glanced at Tianjun, and asked, "Why are you still being beaten? How many people have you brought?" "I'm passing by." "How many people are there?" Mr. Su asked. "One. One person? I can take care of him," the man next to him exclaimed impatiently. "Where's the person?" Tianjun stood up and stared at Lu Feng and said, "Grandson, come here for Laozi." Lu Feng took 2 steps forward, stared at Mr. Su, and asked, "Are you going to give him a head start? What's wrong with him? I warn you, if you don't want anything to happen, apologize to me, or don't blame me for being rude," Su Zonghao said sternly. The car was parked on the side of the road, the window was down. Mr. Hao knocked the soot outside, looked towards this side, and looked a little impatient. "You're welcome. Then you're welcome to take a look at me." Zhang Xiaoyan saw that the other party was crowded, pulled Lu Feng, and muttered, "If it doesn't matter, don't be beaten. It's not so easy to calculate, and you still hit me." Lu Feng said solemnly, "He touched me today, I'll give myself a month or 2 long vacation, and I won't kill them." "A month or 2 long vacation," Zhang Xiaoyan let go and said, "Then go." "Huh?" Lu Feng looked at her and was dumbfounded by her sudden shock. Mr. Su didn't want to fight. Mr. Hao was still waiting. "It's not good to make people wait too long," he said solemnly. "I'll give you one last chance. Don't do it for the last time. I want him to apologize. If you have nothing to do, Go for a walk by the roadside. Lu Feng said to Tianjun, today you must apologize to my wife, or else it will be endless. Mr. Su, don't talk nonsense with him, this kid just sucks. The man next to him couldn't help but want to show it. Just as Mr. Su was about to speak, a man came over and asked, Mr. Hao asked you, are you all right? Right now, I'm really sorry, President Su hurriedly apologized. Mr. Hao, Tianjun was a little surprised and asked, is that the real estate's Mr. Hao? Yes. The two looked towards the car. Mr. Hao couldn't wait to get out of the car and walk towards the side. I was already shocked in my heart, and today is really a gathering of bigwigs. Looking at Lu Feng again, I felt that this young man was a little miserable. It was originally a conflict between the parents of the kindergarten, but this time it was a hole in the sky. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 349. Everyone has completely fried the pot. Today's scene really doesn't end well. With the power of these three people, there is no need to do anything at all. Even if Lu Feng is kneeling on the ground, he may not be able to solve it. What's more, there is the heavyweight Mr. Hao. Mr. Hao stepped forward and asked slightly displeased, what's the matter? Hello, Mr. Hao. Tianjun showed a bit of humility on his face, greeted him, and said, I just got into a dispute with someone. Mr. Hao looked Lu Feng up and down and frowned, look, you're also a poor ghost, so let's go, I'm the master of this matter, you kneel on the ground and kowtow, it's over. Mr. Hao didn't want to wait. With his power, he had already given enough face to both sides. He felt that Lu Feng got the advantage, and Mr. Su also gained face. Mr. Hao has spoken, so let's do it like this. I will listen to Mr. Hao, Tianjun said. The women around who were planning to watch the fun all sighed when they heard the result. It was too boring. In their eyes, it was nothing but kneeling and kowtowing to apologize. In Mr. Hao's eyes, this is forgiveness for Lu Feng, but in Lu Feng's eyes, this is the greatest humiliation. Mr. Hao, isn't it? Lu Feng looked at him with a gloomy face and said, what's your business with me? I advise you to stay away. This. Everyone present stared at Lu Feng with wide eyes, thinking that he was crazy, and Mr. Su couldn't afford to offend him. How dare he talk to Mr. Hao like this? What's more, Hao always turned to him. Not to mention President Su and Tianjun, even President Hao never imagined that a young man dragging his slippers would not give him face so much. Do you know who you are talking to? Mr. Hao's voice became low and his expression was particularly ugly. No one had dared to speak to him like this for many years. Speaking to you, what's the matter? I have some money in my pocket. I'm just pretending to be a character here. Does it have anything to do with you? Lu Feng said in a deep voice. Tianjun is now hoping that Lu Feng will be crazy. The more crazy he is, the more he will be beaten. Mr. Hao is a real estate businessman, and his methods are much more ruthless than them. Boy, let me tell you, it's still too late to apologize, otherwise Mr. Hao is really angry, you are absolutely useless today. Don't be too arrogant, in front of President Hao, you are not even an ant. Tianjun deliberately provoked Lu Feng. I don't want to hear those useless words now, just one, apologize to me and my wife. Mr. Hao was ignored again, and his face was already cloudy. It was the first time that a person like him had been ignored in this way. Young man doesn't know how high the sky is. Mr. Hao smiled and took out a cigarette from his pocket. The assistant next to him hurriedly lit it, took a sip, and said, I apologize before I get angry. As President Hao's face became more and more sinister, the atmosphere at the scene had begun to become solemn. Even Tianjun and President Su became cautious, and a large number of women and children present were silent. This person's aura is great enough to make everyone quiet down. Zhang Xiaoyan felt that the other party was not easy to provoke, so she hurriedly pulled Lu Feng's hand and whispered, "Let's go back and cook, the children are hungry. Let's go out to eat at night." Lu Feng turned his head and stared at Mr. Hao. He didn't seem to feel any pressure, and said relaxedly, "How many times do you want me to say it? It doesn't matter to you, just stay away, okay?" Hiss. When the people present heard Lu Feng's rude words, they took a deep breath. He is looking for his own death. At this time, even Tianjun felt that Lu Feng just didn't want to live. You must know that the construction team under Mr. Hao's team were all ruthless characters. Very good. Mr. Hao didn't get angry but laughed, and waved to a few people around him. 3 or 4 men stared at Lu Feng like eagles and walked over. A minibus passed by, and saw a bunch of cars parked on the side of the road, and a bunch of people gathered not far away. Lu Quan sat in the car and glanced, and asked the person next to him, "What is this for?" "This is the noble kindergarten you are talking about. It should be picking up the children from school. Why doesn't it feel like picking up the child?" Lu Quan opened the car window and glanced at Lu Feng. He thought he was dazzled, so he rubbed his eyes and confirmed that it was Lu Feng. Parking. The driver slammed on the brakes and the car stopped in the middle of the road. The people in the car felt uncomfortable. Lu Quan couldn't care less, opened the door and rushed in. 3 or 4 people were already approaching Lu Feng, and the other parents stepped back one after another. Lu Feng waved his hand and asked Zhang Xiaoyan to take the child back, squatting down and picking up a half-headed brick from the ground. Isn't it just a fight? He didn't care about the people in front of him, and in a while, he hit Tianjun, President Su and President Hao with bricks on the heads. In Lu Feng's heart, some things can be solved by other means, but the only way for his woman to be molested is to fight. 3 or 4 people surrounded them, and they were about to pounce in the next second. Lu Feng was also ready to bypass them and knock a hole in the head of each of the 3 standing. "What are you doing?" angrily shouted, planning everyone's preparations. Following the voice, everyone turned their heads to look, and saw a man in his 40s approaching, with a white shirt on the top and suit pants on the bottom. His temperament definitely didn't look like an ordinary person. What kind of character is this? It doesn't look like an ordinary person. Like a leader. I'm going, it's too lively today. It's over, let me tell you, Duoduo's mother can't eat and walk around today, or she can't even walk. The crowd has already fried the pot, asking each other if they know each other, but no one knows. Mr. Hao was also surprised when he saw Lu Quan coming over. He didn't know why he came. The cloud on his face dissipated in an instant, and he put on a smile. I was secretly shocked by what the identity of this person was. "Mayor Lu, why are you here?" Mr. Hao walked up to the front and said with a smile. Lu Quan is in charge of the enterprises in Luohu district, and is also responsible for the construction of all public facilities here. Whoever is asked to do it can do it, and he definitely has the lifeblood of President Hao. "Deputy," Lu Quan said solemnly. "Sooner or later, you will be positive, you have such a conscientious spirit, isn't that a matter of time?" Mr. Hao flattered. "Vice Mayor." Everyone present was shocked. This is definitely a big man, and it is no longer comparable to business owners. The people present greeted each other, and some even stepped forward to shake hands. Tianjun didn't care about Lu Feng. He hurriedly squeezed forward and said, "Hello, I'm the chairman of Fengjun Company, my name is Tianjun. I am the chairman of Tianhai Trading, and my name is Su Wanman." Surrounded by so many people, Lu Quan nodded slightly. These enterprises have already landed, so there is nothing to be polite. As long as the local policies remain unchanged, they will not leave. The ones who came are not that important anymore. The important thing is those who didn't come. It was his ability and his credit to win over those who didn't come like Lu Feng. "What are you guys doing?" Lu Quan asked. It's just a little dispute. It's trivial. I'm going to trouble you. It's a good solution, I'll fix it right away, I'll treat you to dinner together tonight. I'll be the host. You are also very busy. It's better to hit the sun if you choose a day. Go now, Mr. Howe said politely, his words full of compliments. Lu Quan said in a cold voice that he had no time. He pushed away Mr. Howe, who was smiling all over his face, and took 2 steps forward, as if looking for an important person. Mr. Howe and the others wondered, besides himself, who else could be more important than himself? Although he was muttering in his heart, he didn't dare to ask. The bidding for the project was right in front of him. Lu Quan was now his living ancestor, and he didn't dare to mess with him. Everywhere Lu Quan passed were smiling faces, but he didn't have many smiles on his face. After walking a few steps, he reached Lu Feng with a smile on his face. He reached out and grabbed Lu Feng's hand and said with a smile, "Mr. Lu, I didn't expect to meet you here." "Mr. Lu?" Everyone present was stunned. You know, in front of Lu Quan, the names of these people are Xiao Su, Xiao Hao, and sometimes it's just Hu. Does he call this young man President Lu? What kind of identity does this have to be, such a polite name for such a big company? For a time, everyone's brains were short-circuited. I don't know what happened. President Hao's heart was even more stunned. The first thing that came to his mind was to kick the iron plate. "You're welcome, I'm here to pick up the child." Lu Feng shook Lu Quan's hand and said, "I didn't expect to meet you here. I have benefited a lot since I came back from your factory. Didn't I just come down to inspect? Wang Jinshu and Huang Yowei were there that day, so I can't tell you. What are your thoughts?" Lu Quan was very straightforward. Asked. "I'm afraid it's not a good idea." For a while Lu Feng was a little embarrassed, but he could see that Mr. Hao and these companies had already landed, and he didn't care at all. "Before I came, I called her Xiao Tian Tian, but after I came, I was afraid that she would immediately become Mrs. Niu. It's really fate. I'll be the host at night and invite you to dinner. It's better to hit the sun if you choose a day." Lu Quan pulled Lu Feng's arm very intimately and said, "Let's go now." Mr. Hao was very aggrieved when he heard this. Didn't he just say that he was not free? Why did he say his own words to Lu Feng now? "Let's put it aside for a while. I still have something to do." "What's the matter? You can say anything. I can solve it for you on the spot. If it can't be solved, I will report it to the province." "The province will definitely support it," Lu Quan said, patting his chest. Lu Feng looked at Tianjun, who no longer dared to stare at Lu Feng, and lowered his head slightly. "It's this boss who was rude to my wife. Yesterday, he blocked my wife's car with his car. After the car crashed, he was pestering me to make compensation today," Lu Feng said in a flat voice. A thin layer of perspiration had already seeped out of Tianjun's forehead, and he kept asking in his mind, "What the hell is this young man in big pants and slippers?" High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 350. Although Lu Feng didn't say anything about the details, Lu Quan also climbed up from the bottom. Don't look at these people as well behaved as his grandson in front of him. But in front of ordinary people, they are very arrogant, and they can even make judgments about other people's lives. In addition to Tianjun, President Su, and President Hao, if Lu Feng is really an ordinary person, with the worth of these 3 people, it would not be difficult for Lu Feng's family to break down. Lu Quan knows some things in the business world better than anyone else, but to develop, turn a blind eye. Lu Quan didn't know Tianjun, so naturally he couldn't speak to him, so he looked at President Hao and said, "Hao Donggren, I advise you, it's better to put your tail away, don't put it up as a flag. Shake, if you provoke someone one day, I'll give you a break, don't call me. This is absolutely cruel enough. Mr. Howe was also taken aback when he heard this, and hurriedly said, I just passed by, I didn't do anything, and I don't know this little brother. You don't think I'm such a big man, and I'm here to fight. Then you won't. Some things don't take a day or two. Let me tell you this. We all know the situation of the bad things you did. I won't say anything else. After Lu Quan finished speaking, he turned his head and looked at Lu Feng with a smile on his face and said, let's eat together at night. It's my responsibility when this happens, or should I apologize to you? No, no, Lu Feng hurriedly said. Tianjun saw that Lu Quan wanted to apologize, and hurriedly stood up. If he didn't stand up again, the company might be investigated tomorrow. Standing in front of Zhang Xiaoyan, he said sincerely, Ms. Zhang Xiaoyan, I am very sincere here. I want to apologize to you, it's my fault, it's all because of me, and the car doesn't need you to repair it, I'll compensate you 500,000 for mental damage, I hope you can accept my apology. He said this, Zhang Xiaoyan softened, looked at Lu Feng and said, forget it. If it's 500,000 yuan, it's not less than that. I hope Mr. Tian won't feel that he can do whatever he wants with 2 steel shovels in his pocket, Lu Feng said. Yes, yes, we don't know each other without fighting. President Lu and I are acquainted, and we can eat together when we have time. Tianjun's face was full of pleasing smiles. You don't need to eat. Lu Feng looked at Lu Quan and said, thank you. It's okay, is this your daughter? Oh, this little girl is so beautiful, like her father, let's go. Go to dinner with me? Seeing that Lu Feng did not agree, Lu Quan did his homework again towards Duoduo. I just came back today, let's another day, I'll be the host. Lu Feng politely refused. He finally relaxed, he didn't want to drag Lu Quan at the dinner, he was too tired. Lu Quan invited several more times, but Lu Feng refused them. After a few polite words, they both got into the car and walked away. The sky was already a bit dim, and everyone present did not expect that things would end in this way. The few women who were surrounding Tianjun were dumbfounded. They were not simple people, but now they have become clowns, especially the woman who was slapped by Lu Feng. She wanted to have a meal with Tianjun, but was scolded. After a while, Aggrieved squatted aside and cried. The scene was a bit chaotic. Tianjun looked at President Su and President Hao and asked, who is this person? What's the background? President Su shook his head and said, I don't know, and I haven't seen it before. You don't need to ask, you know, he's not an ordinary person, he's definitely the boss of a big company, and he's still not a big company in Shenzhen. Mr. Hao said solemnly, now these people are pulling companies across the country. Everyone provokes you, understand? Mr. Su looked embarrassed. Originally, he wanted to park the car here and wait a few minutes to solve the matter, but he didn't expect that he was almost solved. Mr. Hao, I'm really sorry, I apologize to you, so I'll give you 3 cups tonight. Hao Donggren didn't even think about what to eat. He glanced coldly at President Su and said, drink yourself. Mr. Su hurriedly ran after him to explain and apologize, but it was useless. Mr. Hao drove away in the car. The other parents of the kindergarten have dispersed one after another, but everyone is muttering in their hearts, how to get closer to Duo children tomorrow. The principal of the school also hurried back to the school to call the principal to ask, what is the origin of Duo's home? In the evening, Lu Feng was cooking in the kitchen, jumping up and down happily like a monkey, rolling on the ground. Zhang Xiaoyan stood beside him to help him, and looked at this man with a special feeling in his heart. What are you stealing? Lu Feng asked without looking back. Are you happy to see me? Zhang Xiaoyan put the plate aside and said, I used to fortune teller when I was a child, and the fortune teller said that my life was good and I could find a good man in the future. When I first married you, I hated that fortune teller. Now, it seems that his calculation is quite accurate. Lu Feng poured out the chicken wings and looked at Duo Duo by the side of the cupboard. I can't eat it, it's hot. Lu Feng washed the pot and prepared the next dish, and said, it turned out to be thanks to the fortune teller. I don't know how to thank me. Where is it? I am beautiful in my heart. Zhang Xiaoyan smiled lightly, and said a little shyly. After this dish is over, you're done. My family of 3 also had a drink today, and I bought a bottle of red wine. Lu Feng fried the dish and said, you are just too weak in character. If you encounter this kind of thing in the future, just give me a big ear and slap him, don't care who it is, I'm here. So, I still have to have a man to call the shots for me. After all, women have to depend on men. Zhang Xiaoyan fiddled with the chicken wings with chopsticks and said, in ancient times, people said that women are like clothes, like you may have many concubines. Already. What's the age? Have you been reading some messy street stall literature recently? Lu Feng said with some dissatisfaction. Zhang Xiaoyan didn't speak. She talked to Zhang Fengxia and knew what kind of person Lu Feng wanted her to be in her heart, but Zhang Shan's nature was difficult to change. Just a few simple words made her independent. Is that still Zhang Xiaoyan, who was beaten for several years and still not divorced? There are 5 or 6 dishes on the table, the red wine in the goblet is so bright, and Duo Duo also carries his own goblet, but it is filled with milk. In the past few months, Zhang Xiaoyan laughed the most in this room. Looking at Lu Feng opposite, Zhang Xiaoyan was so beautiful under the lights. Reaching out and scratching the ends of his hair, he picked up the glass and said, what do you wish for? I wish your wife more and more beautiful, Lu Feng said, touching the glass. What kind of lord? Zhang Xiaoyan was a little unhappy when she heard this. Lu Feng was the pillar of the family and the head of the family. Instead, he called his wife Lord. Did it? Lu Feng didn't care too much, and said to Duo Duo, dry it. The 3 drank it all in one go. After drinking, they looked at each other and smiled. Their eyes were full of tenderness and happiness. Lu Feng had eaten too many meals, whether it was in the past or this life. I even drank a bottle of 100-year-old barrel wine once, only a few sips, but it cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. However, the wine was far from the one I bought from the supermarket tonight. Duo Duo was making a fuss, Lu Feng was coaxing, Zhang Xiaoyan drank, her cheeks flushed, chatted with Lu Feng about Duo Duo, she laughed so happily, Lu Feng could even see her eyes flashing. Star. Lu Feng didn't eat much. Looking at her, not only filled his heart, but also filled his stomach. It was already past 10 o'clock in the evening, and there was no work, no intrigue, and no calculations. In the bedroom, Duo Duo was bouncing around on the bed, making a fuss about going to sleep with Lu Feng tonight. Stop jumping, go to sleep. Lu Feng reached out and hugged her, giving her a hard kiss on the cheek. Zhang Xiaoyan had already washed up and walked in wearing pajamas. Duo Duo slept in the middle, the children were noisily and slept fast, and soon fell asleep. Lu Feng groped and grabbed Zhang Xiaoyan's hand in the dark. I never thought that my love needs to travel through time and space to get it. What? Nothing, I just want to say, I love you. Don't be numb. Although Zhang Xiaoyan's mouth was disgusting, but the hand that grabbed Lu Feng was even tighter. After thinking about it, he said, it would be nice to have another son, one more person, alone, with a younger brother and a daughter. I have my son, too. Don't mention this, the country won't let you live. Let's pay the fine. I heard from my mother that in the town, one more child will pay 2,000. Lu Feng didn't want to talk, he pretended to be asleep, snoring loudly. Zhang Xiaoyan felt a little lonely, sighed softly, and remembered her mother's words on the phone. You can't have children, so what are you using to tie people up? Women have to have children. Your sister just got married. Although her husband's family treats her well because of your face, it was a boy when he went to check on her a few days ago. That's right for her. That's all there is to it. Zhang Xiaohong is pregnant, it's a boy. The next day, Lu Feng woke up and Duoduo had been sent to the school. Zhang Xiaoyan told him that when Duoduo went there, the children greeted her, and the principal stood up to shake her hand. Lu Feng also expected this kind of treatment. No aristocratic school is just a place for adults to communicate. My sister is pregnant. My mother called me a few days ago and asked if my stomach was moving, Zhang Xiaoyan said while sitting on a chair. Lu Feng felt that he was about to be driven mad by her. In her current state, it was impossible for her to conceive with a normal body. He also knew that this matter had become Zhang Xiaoyan's heart disease and could not be solved in a few words. What's more, her mind was deeply impressed by this era, and Lu Feng couldn't shake it. Now is July 2nd, Lu Feng thought silently in his heart. Jiafeng Electronics is on the right track. If he goes back, the next 2 or 3 months can indeed reorganize the internal and do some other development. But without him, the business will not have any problems. But in Zhang Xiaoyan's current state, without him, something would really happen. I won't leave for the time being, I will stay with you for 2 or 3 months, Lu Feng looked at her and said. Is this bad? Will it affect you? I think you still focus on your career, Zhang Xiaoyan persuaded Lu Feng, but the smile on her face couldn't stop. In the end, he happily plunged into Lu Feng's arms. A woman who is duplicitous, Lu Feng was also amused by her. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 351. Lu Feng called Zhang Fengxia to tell her about this, so that she could stabilize for a while. The market has basically stabilized, and there will only be peace after the war. There won't be too many things in the short term, so I won't go back for now. On the other end of the phone, Zhang Fengxia sighed and said, What? Sister Xiaoyan has been entangled with you? 2 or 3 months. Are you sure you won't be skinny by then? Listening to her teasing, Lu Feng smiled and said, I want to help her find something to do. Didn't I keep talking about starting a cosmetics company before? I took advantage of this time to help her set up. I have something to do, save money all day and night. All my thoughts are on pregnancy. Yeah, I also feel that her state is not right. She is about to become a demon. She said this as soon as I called and chatted with me. A few days ago, her sister was pregnant, and she cried while talking to me. Zhang Fengxia sighed. She had an indescribable feeling towards Zhang Xiaoyan. Zhang Xiaoyan's experience always made her feel sympathy, but there was some kind of expectation in her heart. Lu Feng ordered a lot of things, especially in terms of internal management. Let her make some preparations first, and after returning, it would be convenient for her to do it herself. After hanging up, he called Zhu Lidong again and told him not to do anything else in the market recently, mainly to collect funds. Of course, you can travel a little more and go to the local market of other identities to check the situation. Do some preliminary preparations for the market and be ready to attack at any time. It also requires the internal self-reorganization of the marketing department. The sales management companies in each province are all subsidiaries. These companies are all under the management of the marketing department. However, as the business changes, the model of these companies should also be changed. Lu Feng knew one thing: manpower is cheap now, and there are a few girls standing at the entrance of the Electrical City booth to greet guests. The staff is very complicated. The most important thing is that these subordinate companies are all cooperative models. The accounts must be clarified, or else they will be killed without knowing it. That is to say, Lu Feng has always been very concerned about the financial aspect. More than 10 days ago, the financial affairs found that some accounts were not correct. Bayating in Hebei and Shijiazhuang in 2 places. The account is less than 300,000. After investigation, it was found that the cooperating dealers used their brains, not only fiddling with the purchase order, but also cooperating with the dealers in the province to make false accounts. This matter is the cooperation of the marketing department. If Zhu Lidong does not cooperate with the financial investigation, he just knows that there is a gap in Hebei. Lu Feng is very aware of the management drawbacks of large companies. It is absolute power. Once it causes irreparable losses to the company, it is useless to shoot him. Need to split. This also gave the two of them a chance to dismantle it themselves, and then Lu Feng would do it again. After making the phone call, Lu Feng went out. Zhang Xiaoyan had planted a lot of flowers in the flower pond at the door. On his feet was a viewing platform made of solid wood. Looking at the sea not far away, is extraordinarily pleasant. It's over. Lu Feng lay down and took a sip of watermelon juice, then said, "This is the longest vacation I've given myself." Zhang Xiaoyan didn't expect that Lu Feng really planned to ask the company for 2 or 3 months, and said, "Is that okay? Don't do anything else because of me." "It's alright, there's Feng Xia." Lu Feng lay down, crossed Erlang's legs, and called out comfortably twice, thinking to himself that it would be better if he didn't work. Then, "Why don't you go in the house?" Zhang Xiaoyan felt that the time was very tight, so hurry up. "Huh." Lu Feng turned his head and stared at her with wide eyes, and said, "Let's just lie here for a while. When is Duduo's summer vacation?" "Come on, it's just a few days off. After the holiday, go back and give the child to your mother." Zhang Xiaoyan nodded shyly. She didn't believe it anymore. This time she couldn't conceive, but the next moment, Lu Feng poured her a basin of cold water. "Didn't I tell you about the cosmetics company before? Let's take advantage of this time to get it started." Lu Feng thought for a while and said, "A lot of them have had their birthdays this year. They are all 5-year-olds. Next semester will be a big class. I mean full care. You stay here to help me get the company." Zhang Xiaoyan's words were full of disappointment, and she said, "Or do you think I'm too idle? I'm not worthy of you." "No, you are always worthy of me, but pregnancy is not only a physical problem, but also a psychological problem. If you are nervous, you will not be able to implant, or you will not be able to bond, or it will be after the fetal wall. Through this situation, do you know?" Lu Feng stared at Zhang Xiaoyan and said seriously. Zhang Xiaoyan listened with question marks all over her head. She had heard what Lu Feng said many times from the doctor's mouth, but Lu Feng seemed to be like a doctor. Zhang Xiaoyan looked at Lu Feng. For the first time, she felt that Lu Feng was like a cloud of fog, which made her see it but couldn't grasp it. That kind of elusive feeling made people feel very insecure. "What's wrong?" Lu Feng asked. "How do you know all this mess? Didn't you graduate from primary school?" Zhang Xiaoyan was suspicious at first. She used to think that earning money was easy, but Lu Feng was very elite in some fields. Lu Feng was a little flustered by what she saw, and hurriedly said, "Yes, men, they all talk about women. I also listened to what others said. Just let it take its course. You focus on the company. Contact people." Zhang Xiaoyan heard what Zhang Fengxia told herself. Lu Feng's career is getting bigger and bigger, a housewife is of no use to him at all. What to say? Love can indeed allow a man to tolerate a woman, but love also has a lifespan. When love dies, everything is over. "Well, let's do it then. I have also learned a lot of makeup recently." Zhang Xiaoyan nodded and agreed. Lu Feng didn't expect her promise to be so happy. He was a little surprised for a while, but he became happy when he reacted. Nothing could make him happier than this. When Lu Cheng learned that Lu Feng was back, he called immediately and told about the company's recent situation. He sent a few teams to study abroad, and the first batch had already returned. The task Lu Feng gave Lu Cheng was not to limit himself to the TV set, but to develop several groups to study new things, such as radios, tape recorders, and Walkmans. When Lu Cheng heard these things, he already knew in his heart that GFN Electronics was about to expand its product line, and Lu Feng was not willing to only make TV sets. For 3 consecutive days, I cooked and went to the beach to play every day. It seemed that in an instant, there was nothing but happiness in my life. Duo took the summer vacation on time, bought 2 air tickets the next day, and sent her back. Lu Feng is lying at home, and now he is waiting for Zhang Xiaoyan to come back. It's just a cosmetic company. For him, it is a piece of cake. Lu Feng is ready in his heart. As long as Zhang Xiaoyan loses tens of millions of dollars a year, he will just let her make it. What are you earning so much money for? Isn't it just to spoil the daughter-in-law? Besides, with the scale of the initial period, she can lose up to 1 million, and if she exceeds 1 million, she is considered a business wizard. Lying on the sofa, thinking about the market and profit of cosmetics, the phone on the table next to the sofa rang. Hey, who is it? Lu Feng asked lazily. It's President Lu. Remember me? Hao Donggren, the one at the door of the kindergarten. Hao Donggren's voice sounded on the other end of the phone. Lu Feng sat up abruptly. He thought it was Zhang Xiaoyan's phone call, but he didn't expect it to be him. How did Mr. Hao find my phone number? It's simple, I entrusted a few friends, and I entrusted someone to contact President Lu of your company. I have no other intentions, but I just want to make friends and go out for a meal. How about it? President Hao asked. I've been very busy lately, and I've only met once. I'm not interested in doing engineering, and I don't want to have anything to do with a big boss like Mr. Hao, lest others say I'm flattering you, Lu Feng bluntly refused. Mr. Lu, I think I should be worried about what you said. I don't care if others say I'm flattering you. I just want to pass you and have a meal with Lu Quan. Besides, you want to expand a new factory. It's cheap for you. Hao Donggren on the other end of the phone had apparently investigated Lu Feng all over the past few days, and had thoroughly investigated the 2 companies, GFN Electronics and GMA Food. I don't know if I don't check it, but Hao Donggren was startled when he checked it out. Hao Donggren immediately decided that whether it was useful or not, he must have more contact with this young man. Lu Feng frowned secretly and said, "This is my company's business. Isn't it just a matter of a word for a man like Mr. Hao to have a meal with Lu Quan? It's not easy either. I'm an engineer. Engineering is different from electronic technology. Engineers are obedient dogs. President Lu can give Lu Quan a face, because you don't depend on him for food. I'm different. Lu Quan said that you will come tonight, Tianyuan Hotel, private room on the 4th floor, I hope President Lu will appreciate it." Hao Donggren didn't say much, just hung up the phone. Lu Feng put down the phone. His face was not good looking. If it was just a meal, it would be a trivial matter, and he was afraid that this person would stare at him. I originally thought of relaxing for a few days, to spend the days of disarming and returning to the field, but after only a few days, I came to the door again. More than an hour later, Zhang Xiaoyan called and booked a flight ticket for tomorrow. He went back at 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and he kept mumbling for a long time, why he didn't go back. His family wanted to see him. The reason why Lu Feng didn't go back was because he was afraid of seeing these relatives, not to mention the relatives of Zhang Xiaoyan's family, who were very difficult to deal with. At 6 o'clock in the evening, the sky began to get dark outside. After thinking about it, Lu Feng decided to go to the banquet. He picked up the car keys from the table and went straight to the Tianyuan Hotel. He said, "High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list."